A feeling akin to that of being simultaneously dreaming and awake. When everyone opened their eyes, what was before them was no longer the world of steel and iron that was the alien headquarters. It was God's realm. Dark and bright, illusionary, and real, an infinitely large world that was indescribable. Everyone was momentarily dazed in the instant they opened their eyes. It was only about a second later that Zheng abruptly shouted. "Damn it, Xian, you idiot. Wasn't that too vicious? God, full body repair. Deduct the points from me." Although Zheng was shouting, he was still calling for a full body repair with a clear mind. Although his injuries had already fully recovered after fusing with the guide, the other team members were more or less injured. Especially was Hung's group, whose breath had become extremely weak. He didn't know what the so-called energy absorption Lionheart used was. Could it turn people into servants like the vampires in Legends? Thus, the usual full body repair was a necessity. Just as he had imagined, the time Hung and the others, who had been drained dry of energy, spent suspended in the air had even exceeded the time spent to repair their genes after unlocking the genetic constraint. Only after a long time did they fall down from mid-air. When they reached the ground, Aang Sunamun cried as she pounced on Imhotep. The handsome bald man was actually at a slight loss at this. After all, Aang Sunamun in the past was an icy beauty, so this type of situation occurring were too few. Wang Xia, Cheng Xiao, and Hung all understandingly smiled at this. Hung immediately looked at Ming Yanwei subconsciously. However, she simply didn't even look at him, and seemed completely indifferent. This action made Hung's heart feel cold, and he bitterly laughed. He looked silently at the rest of his comrades. Of course he didn't know about her expression before at the alien headquarters. At this moment, on the other side among the team members, Zheng was holding Xian by the collar. The furious man raised his hand and was about to hit Xian. Unexpectedly, an ancient bell sounded suddenly. A small brass bell appeared on Xian's head. Zheng, who was originally about to hit Xian, fell to the ground. His entire body spasmed continuously, as if he was suffering some great pain. "Does it hurt?" Xian held the small brass bell in his palm, quietly asking Zheng. Zheng shouted as he spasmed on the ground. "Damn it, what toy is that? Why does it hurt so much? I can't possibly not even be able to endure pain with my body constitution, right? What did you do, Doraemon? Could that small bell be?" Yes. It is indeed the bell of the East Emperor, but why is it so different? This fluctuation can directly stimulate the sense of pain. Even you are in so much pain. So, why can I still not feel? Xian looked at his palm, then shut his eyes for a very long time. After he had opened his eyes, the surrounding people had already encircled him, including Zheng, who had fallen on the ground after being attacked with pain. Compared to anything else, what everyone cared about the most was whether Xian had overcome his heart's devil. Xian indifferently shook his head. "I didn't overcome the heart's devil, but I did suppress it. It seems I still need to." Hearing that, all the surrounding people felt their entire body shiver, as if Xian was about to attack them next. Also, what was most terrifying weren't his attacks, but his endless schemes that were hard to guard against. They didn't want to go through it again. They really didn't want to go through the feeling of being schemed by their head strategist, especially this man Chu Xian. "He'll have to switch to another method." Xian was shaking his head. "I originally thought that the heart's devil could be overcome by using this type of forceful method to break through. It wasn't easy to find a chance to scheme against God, which was why I had to borrow this chance to finish this matter. Who would have expected that I could only suppress it like before? Although the suppression is very thorough, and I wouldn't be afraid of it flaring up when I use the power of an early fourth stage, there isn't much difference between this and using the lambda driver to suppress it apart from the probability decreasing. So, I still need another method to overcome it." As Xian was talking, Zheng suddenly hit the back of his head, causing this utterly cold man to stagger. Zheng directly grabbed his collar and spoke. "Damn it, was I farting before? I said that whenever there's something going on, say something. Just say something. Will you die if you say something? Did you think I would disagree with your scheme and plan?" Xian didn't mind Zheng's actions. He pushed up his spectacles as he spoke. "If you knew about it beforehand, would you have agreed to my scheme and plans this time?" "Of course I won't agree." It was almost unimaginable. Zheng's answer just happened to be resolute and unhesitating. To the surrounding people, the result of them conversing was exactly the same as not speaking. Xian seemed to know Zheng would answer thus. He only placed that small ancient bell on the ground, before speaking. "After I found out you no longer possess the leader status, I have been waiting for this opportunity. My heart's devil probably appeared in the Transformers movie. At that time, I knew I was nearing the mid-fourth stage. Although I don't know why, I had a feeling that if I broke through this obstacle, I would obtain what I've always wanted. Based on information obtained in the past, God will create a new guide to enter the team when the team leader dies. The team members will then be tested in a certain horror movie. When the team leader is determined, the entire horror movie will be stopped." "Wait." Hunglu suddenly interjected. "How could you be sure that the movie would be stopped when the ascertained team leader was in danger? Or if the movie was stopped as soon as the team leader was determined, wouldn't your heart's devil plan be unusable? To be honest, I only have a confidence of about 60%. How are you so sure?" Xian indifferently took a tomato from his chest area and took a bite. "I've never been sure." "That's right. I nearly forgot about this fellow's deep-rooted bad habit. He will dare to bet on anything as long as the probability exceeds 50%. Although he hasn't lost any so far, he's really a gambler through and through. Everyone shivered in aversion within their hearts, while Xian continued to speak as he ate his tomato. The basic situation is like that. Based on all the information collated, there are two possibilities after the guide has determined the team leader. First is that the team safely completes the movie world. The second is that the team doesn't finish the movie world safely. Ignoring how the first scenario would go for now, if we use G's example to analyze it, we can at least confirm that for the second scenario, the guide will likely stop the whole movie world when the team meets great danger. That was why G would say what he did at that time. Even though the situation then made him feel safe, and he still died after that, that should have nothing to do with the environment. It should instead have to do with the special circumstances he met. Thus, I have reason to believe that the guide stopped the movie since G had already been determined as the leader, and was the only one left to die. In other words, the guide would only stop the entire movie world when the team leader meets danger. If you think along this direction, the plan to use force to overcome the Heart's Devil could be realized. Since the goal of the plan was to kill everyone, to do it after the guide had ascertained the leader, and to also have the leader be one of the dead, there was only one place I could think of to scheme with these preconditions. That was the horror movie world where the new leader is selected. Everyone silently listened to Xian's words. When he finally finished his speech, Cheng Xiao curiously asked a question. I won't get into the intricacies of the scheme for now. We have the weirdo you, and the little weirdo Hunglu for that after all. What I want to ask is, how did you distinguish who the guide is between the two newbies? I could tell that Hunglu and you were very confident. Hunglu coughed lightly, and held the hair in front of his forehead as he laughed. Let me answer that question as a guide, even if it's a half guide, half team member like Zhang Ji, there is one thing to always take note of. Even if it's Ji who breaks it, God will also raise the difficulty of the movie. That is that no matter what, they cannot interfere with the progress of the movie. This means they cannot meddle in the changes to the movie or the survival of team members and cannot attack members of other teams. Only Yang Suilin among the two newbies had never done these from the start. Lin Junchen, however, wanted to change the progress of the movie from the start. So, the guide was instead the easiest to determine. Apart from this were the intricacies of the scheme. Ever since I discovered the situation Xian left for me, I've been completely following his arrangements, and setting up this scheme. Wait just a moment. Zheng suddenly asked a question. That just now was the Bell of the East Emperor, right? You can use this cultivation treasure? Impossible. Xian replied extremely directly. Remember what I told you before? The Bell of the East Emperor's initial usages can be obtained directly. However, it requires large amounts of energy to sustain. My Lambda driver can still act as the processor to control the Bell of the East Emperor. To provide this enormous energy, it can only be obtained from the alien headquarters. That's right. Before, the Bell of the East Emperor was stealing the energy from the alien headquarters. That pain stimulation just now was the last of the energy. Wait until you get 10,000 times stronger before you use this. If you want to use the Bell of the East Emperor, it's still too early for the current you. Before all that, why not tell me the specific data regarding Chaos, Genesis Splitter? The general meaning of this move was to allow magic and refined chi to collide in the body. This would cause an energy reaction similar to that of the magic cannon. The power the magic cannon erupted with was enough to sink a small landmass. Although the energy reaction within Zheng's body was much smaller, but in a correspondingly small body, the result wasn't inferior to the strike that could sink land masses. To a biological life form, this power was akin to the result of Genesis splitting. The power that could be displayed was terrifying, and was indeed unimaginable. If Zheng could safely exhibit this power, one punch of his would be equivalent to a missile. A full power strike of his would surpass a miniature nuclear bomb by far. This power really wasn't one a biological life form should possess. Zheng's strength at that time was enough to single-handedly attack and destroy the entire alien headquarters. Even if he went up against those legendary American superheroes, he had confidence into smashing them into a pancake. This power had in reality far surpassed the limit that the mid-fourth stage of the genetic constraint should possess. This was the power of the fifth stage. From my preliminary estimations, the time I can safely use this isn't even a second. When I start to use this power, my genes will start to break down. Then the body starts to collapse due to the backlash. My body is already extremely tyrannical, and I can't use this power even with the dragon transformation. I think my body should already be sufficiently strong, so the crux should be how to manipulate this power. I believe the domain of energy should be of the fifth stage, or the power of the late fourth stage. That's all for now. Ever since the usage of the genetic constraint was known, the reliance of the teams on God to become stronger had decreased to very low after their power reached a certain level. When increasing their personal power or overall team power, the two truly most important things were self-created abilities and unlocking the genetic constraint of fourth stage or above. These two things were unmatched when it came to increasing power, even if one only had one of them. For example, that idiot Lionheart had actually become terrifyingly powerful after possessing a self-created ability. He had only died such an unjust death as he had met Zheng, who was using Chaos, Genesis Splitter. For the time being, don't even talk about the difficulty level of a self-created ability. The number of people in the entire realm unlocking the fourth stage genetic constraint didn't exceed 20 people. As for those who overcame the Heart's Devil and reaching the mid-fourth stage, they could be counted on one hand. As for the late fourth stage, if someone really possessed that power, that person would definitely be clone Zheng of Team Devil. So, Chaos, Genesis Splitter can only be used as my killer move for mutual defeat. I can sustain it for about 10 to 15 seconds. If the final battle begins I definitely won't use this except as a last resort. But if I do use this, I have the confidence to perish together with my clone. Zheng finally stopped when he reached this point, before sighing lightly. Xian finally finished eating his tomato. He rubbed his hands. Like this time? After you kick out once you lose a leg. When you punch out you lose an arm, you think the state NAD power can let you fight with your clone. Don't joke around, you'll just become a punching bag. Understood. Zheng clenched his fists. After becoming leader again, my genetic constraint didn't have any increase or change. It seems like the extent of God's control of the genetic constraint is only to the third stage. I didn't have much hope towards this before anyways. The greatest gain in Independence Day movie is that I tried Chaos Genesis Splitter and got to have direct experience in understanding it and recognize our pride. The surrounding people all felt slightly confused at this, and looked left and right at each other. After a long time Tenji asked the question first. Zheng, what is our pride? Because we are Team China. Zheng resolutely nodded. Without noticing it, we have already come so far. From when we entered this realm until now, we have experienced life and death, countless battles, partings and reunions, as well as great joy and great sorrow, so it turns out our team was actually this strong. I heard from Team Pacific that how powerful we are is circulating among the entire realm. They have even placed us on the same level as Team Celestial and Team Devil. Zheng exhaled as he continued to speak. This is only the beginning. Since we've already come this far, how can we lose at the last moment? Our Team China doesn't just have to live on, but also as the most powerful team in the realm. Our Team China will surpass Team Devil and Team Celestial, become a legend among all the teams. Even if we leave this realm in the future or die somewhere, Team China will still be the exception among the teams. We will be the strongest. Everyone was looking at Zheng strangely. Even Lori at the side had the same expression, as this Zheng was very different from the usual him. It was as if he was a different person. The usually indecisive him was nowhere to be seen. When I used chaos, I felt death nearing so much. But I didn't die, and instead obtained the leader authority. What have we been persevering for? Our petty and small wish of just living on met obstacle after obstacle. We really don't have anything else left. The horror movie worlds, team battles, Team Celestial, Team Devil and God, our enemies, are simply too many. At that edge of life and death I finally understood. Since we can't run away, why not just fight back? Everything, the two special teams, and even God, we will challenge them all. We will become the strongest team, and even trample God at our feet. Then we will have truly lived on. Zheng was clenching his fists tightly, and was more or less shouting this, and the surrounding people were standing there in a daze. Only Xian clapped as he spoke. Ignoring the other teams, in terms of strength, not even Team Celestial may be able to challenge us. But are you sure we can challenge Team Devil? Based on what I know, that team has my clone and yours, as well as Zhao Zuokang and other strong people. Zheng resolutely nodded his head. I still have all of you, my comrades for wisdom. I have you and Honglu in tandem, so I'm very relieved for this. As for Zhao Zuokang, I think you, Yin Kong, should want to have a fight with him. As for the other strong people, all of you definitely won't lose to them. I have a training plan. In the final break time before the final battle, I will exchange all the points and side quests into rest time inside the movies and high-grade medicines for healing injuries and recovering fatigue. I need to undergo a final training there. Then I will deal with my clone. Only now did everyone snap out of it. Although everyone was silent, none of their faces had different expressions. Instead, after Zheng's resolute display, their expressions had a hint of expectation and calmness. Honglu sighed. No matter what, let's see what the next movie is. Since you want to go to a movie world to undergo training, and exchange various high-grade medicines, you need to save large amounts of points and side quests before the final battle. I hope the next movie world isn't the final battle. The others all nodded. Only Imhotep and Angsunamun were still there kissing each other. While Hung was still there endlessly dispirited, the other team members were generally alright. Zheng laughed mischievously, and scratched his head. He shut his eyes and faced God, speaking after a moment. The next movie is Aragon. It seems I've watched this movie before. It's a fantasy movie about giant dragons battling. That's strange, this counts as a horror movie? Zheng was talking to himself. Only after a long time did he speak up. Alright, everyone go and have a good rest. Gather in my room tomorrow noon. Well, have a good meal and rest, and only in the afternoon will we discuss Aragon. Right, think about whatever you need to exchange. You can raise it in the discussions tomorrow. This is unrelated, but Honglu suddenly interrupted, speaking with a strange expression filling his face as he half knelt on the ground. The final battle should be in the next 2 or 3 movies. As for exactly how many, I'm not too sure. Why? Zheng, Chengxiao, Wangxia, and Hung asked in unison. This is just a guess. Do you remember the plot of Aragon? There is a plot inside about how a young dragon transforms into a mature dragon within a short time. Although it's just a movie, but did you all not think of something? That's right, what if our young dragon also matures within an instant? We would possess a giant dragon over 100 meters long, which is also our comrade. Doesn't this horror movie seem like it's specially arranged for us by God? Honglu plucked off a strand of hair, and played with the hair. I said it before, this is just a guess of mine. Before the final battle, God will definitely let all the teams make their preparations. The best would be if each team could reach their limit. If you think about it thus, this Aragon is really like the preparation process that God has given us. If this deduction holds up, then we'll be entering the final battle in 2 or 3 movies. Because we still have so many members sleeping, we should still meet another team battle before the final battle. Those are all my deductions. The time we have left to the final battle is just a mere 2 or 3 movies away. About 5 days had passed since the return from Independence Day to God's realm. In this time everyone had already rested completely apart from the newbies who had just entered the movie worlds. Even the Aragon plot and countermeasures had already been planned. Everyone wasn't too worried about the next movie world, as there was no team battle, and was likely to be one of the rare easy movies that God gave. What really made them worried was the deduction that Honglu made. Was the final battle nearing? Had Team China completed their preparations? Perhaps Zheng had already done his preparations to welcome the final battle, from his power to understanding, and from his mentality to plans. But what about the rest of Team China? Including Xian, everyone more or less had this type of question. If it wasn't not being powerful enough, then it was an incorrect mental state, or just being in the sleeping state. In any case, challenging Team Devil, that man known as the strongest in the realm, Xian's clone as well, a whole group of terrifying clones in this imperfect state, could they really do it? This already isn't up to us about whether we can do it or not. Since God has already arranged that the final battle is nearing, instead of wondering whether we can do it, we should instead think about how to live on, and how to beat the other teams. Zheng spoke to the team members before him, looking at Xian. That man was currently calculating something out in a journal, his face filled with fanaticism. Normally, Xian being in this state was unusual and infrequent. For this man who lacked emotions or the senses, his thirst for knowledge was his only desire. At present, those secret cultivation manuals were the unknown articles that he wanted to analyze and decipher the most. So in the past 2 days, this man had been maintaining this fanatical look, which only made the others' hair stand on end. Everyone felt that, if possible, that cold as ice expression of his was actually not that bad. Is this fellow really listening? I told him yesterday to think of a way to raise everyone's morale. Today I'm the one instead giving a speech. I really want to give this guy a violent beating. Zheng wanted to find a way to raise everyone's morale, because the majority of the team members before him had low morale. Thus, he found Honglu to discuss this issue. The root cause they found was that the overall power of the team was insufficient. If they could get some breakthrough in power from Xian, then their morale would naturally be able to suddenly rise. Otherwise, Team China's morale would likely not have much change until the final battle. Without any alternative, Zheng could only enter that dangerous room of Xian. He then entered the even more dangerous underground testing room to find Xian and discuss a solution. His luck this time was good, however. Xian happened to come out from his room to exchange something from God, and Zheng hastily grabbed him. He hurriedly asked him questions for a period of time, and told all the things he was considering to that man. The basic situation is like that. For now, let's not discuss whether we have completed the preparations for the final battle, and whether Honglu's deduction is correct. I feel like the current state of Team China won't do. If we persistently keep testing them on the situation during the final battle, well, instead restrict their power. Zheng spoke about all his misgivings. Xian laughed coldly as he said, "This is your responsibility as leader. You can't keep asking me to scheme and plan, then think of methods to create equipment, then think of methods to obtain cultivation techniques, and then think of methods to comfort those team members. What do you take me for? Doraemon. In short, Team Devil is just a team. You really wasted the A Nightmare on Elm Street movie world, if you really can't pass even this kind of obstacle because of a single team wipe and because you take all those rumors as legend." Having finished speaking, Xian turned around to walk back to his room. Behind him, Zheng was already shouting about what he was going to say for the next day's speech. In the end, the only one who truly thought of a method on the second day was still Zheng. That bastard, Xian, had a fanatical expression on his face as he researched from the time he appeared to now. This strange him had made the surrounding people instinctively stay 10 meters away from him. It wasn't that he was definitely dangerous, but that their instincts made them feel that being beside him was a type of danger in itself. Zheng got angrier the more he looked at this. Finally, he wasn't able to help but start shouting. "Xian. You should say something whatever the case, alright? And don't keep showing that fanatical expression. Don't you feel like you're scaring people?" Hearing that, Xian rubbed his facial expression. The rubbed face suddenly changed from one of fanaticism to one of cool indifference. This process made everyone sweat profusely, while he nonchalantly spoke. "Do you all feel Team Devil is easy to deal with? How is Team Celestial compared to them?" Zheng opened his mouth as he wanted to speak. Xian shook his head at him strangely, then that man turned to the other members of Team China. Everyone else had gone silent as they thought about it, with only Honglu shaking his head. "I've never clashed with Team Celestial before, so I don't know their special characteristics and team composition. I only heard that they have the sole true cultivator among all the teams, right? His strength seems to be stronger than Zheng using destruction. He also doesn't seem to be the strongest in the team, which means the power of the team shouldn't be weak. It's not just not bad." Zero suddenly broke the silence. He nodded. "Accurately speaking, they are extremely strong. If we clash directly with them, given our strength, it would end in a team wipe. If our luck is good, it may be a Pyrrhic victory. If not for Xian, there would definitely have been casualties in our team. In actual fact, the one most likely to die was Zheng. If not for Xian's schemes and arrangements, Zheng would definitely have died. The rest secretly nodded. Only Xian shook his head. Do you know why Team Celestial cannot contend with Team Devil? It is because Team Devil has an unsurpassable apex. From the information we know, Clone Zheng once challenged Team Celestial alone and obtained victory. Although we don't know whether it was a Pyrrhic victory, but this piece of news is enough. He is someone whom no one can match. Then Xian spoke to Zheng again. If we don't talk about Chaos, Genesis Splitter, and we rate your power as 100 during Lord of the Rings, how much has your strength risen since, after breaking through to the mid-4th stage? Zheng considered it. It should be rated as about 300 to 500. After overcoming the Heart's Devil, my strength increased by a great amount. Even without Chaos, Genesis Splitter, my strength has still increased by 3 to 5 times. If I battle with Luo Yinglong with his strength at that time, I definitely won't lose. No, it should be that I will kill him after giving him light to serious wounds. That's right. Xian snapped his fingers. You all have always had a misconception. Whether a team is strong or weak is indeed looked at using the overall team strength. For example, it needs a Psyche Force user, a long-range sniper, someone with large-scale firepower, melee competence, and the team's brains. These are all completely necessary. If both sides have all these members, then what will decide the survival of the team will be how much their actual power is. Let me make a comparison. Team Devil's power is 5,500, and Clone Zheng takes up 5,000 of this. This is a table I made based on the information we have. There are other teams we have faced inside. Xian took a table from a pile of documents. Inside was Team Forest, Team Pacific, Team India, Team Celestial, and Team Devil. The series had all the teams Team China had faced before inside. Team Devil ranked first, and indeed had the number 5,500. The known Team Devil members were all recorded inside, and solely Clone Zheng took up 5,000 of this rating. Is there something wrong with this table? Why is Team Celestial's rating lower than us? It's only 2,100, while we are at 3,700. That fellow, Zheng, is 3,000 himself? It's not possible. Cheng Xiao had a strange expression on his face, speaking as he looked at it. Everyone else's eyes were filled with doubt. Xian laughed coldly instead. Nothing is impossible. This table refers to when the team is whole, and doesn't include those who were raised like cattle. With the condition that both teams are fully gathered, then what the two sides will compete in are schemes and power. If their schemes are equal, then they will compete in power and conviction. Based on my information, if Team Devil all dies out and only Clone Zheng is left alive, Team Devil will not be wiped. His power has already exceeded the level of schemes and the constraints of the environment. Thus, his 5,000 rating is enough to challenge a powerful team. Then Zheng. That's not much to say. After overcoming the Heart's Devil, your power approaches that of your clone. You still lack something, however I'll go into that later. I'll only say that your current strength isn't on the same level as your clone. At least, when you use Chaos, Genesis Splitter, you can decimate Team Celestial, but you will die in the end. So, after you obtained Chaos, Genesis Splitter, I gave you a rating of 3,000. As for Team Celestial's power, I based it on Lord of the Rings. Unless Luo Yinglong and their team continued to rise in power, they won't be able to go against us of Team China and Team Devil. Next is the crux of the matter. If Team Devil is just based on the power of their ordinary members, they actually won't surpass us by much. The truly terrifying one is that man who stands at the apex of power in the entire realm. If we can kill him. If we kill that man, Team Devil isn't some insurmountable obstacle. That is why, my plan for the final battle is a battle of kings. King versus king. Xian's plan seemed to be slightly insane, but this seemed to have been his style all along, which was to use the most daring method to give the most shocking attack. When they had recovered their senses, the entire scheme would have already started, or even ended. His plan for the final battle was a battle of kings. For Zheng to challenge Clone Zheng. The other Team China members would challenge the other Team Devil members. When Zheng obtained victory, Team China would win. When Clone Zheng obtained victory, Team China would be wiped. This choice between either victory or defeat, it couldn't be denied that it really was something Xian would do. This reasoning is actually very simple. You all can go and think about it. The more people there are, the more variables when executing a scheme. So, although we can scheme for the final battle, it won't be possible for a reversal like in Lord of the Rings to happen. So, we can only choose to use force against force to challenge the strongest team, Team Devil. Although we can borrow Team Celestial's strength, but we would also need to guard against and pay attention to this team, so, why not just stake it all on this 50% chance? Zheng, based on the current situation, you don't have a guarantee in defeating your clone. However, based on the ones we already know of, our victory is assured unless Team Devil has another one or two more surpassingly powerful existences. We can then become your battle support. A battle of kings can indeed decide the life and deaths of two teams. At the same time, the victory of the battle between us and the remaining members of Team Devil can also decide the battle of kings. So, what you need to do the most is defeat your clone. If you can't defeat him, then try your best to stall for time until we determine our own victory or defeat. This is the sole method to defeat Team Devil. Everyone was listening to what Xian was saying seriously. Only Honglu held his hair as he frowned. After considering for a moment, he suddenly spoke. That's right, this plan is indeed the only method to defeat Team Devil. Although the probability for failure is big, I would rather choose this method than complete defeat. It's just don't forget, Team Devil has your clone as well. If you were in Team Devil, would you allow this situation to occur? That's right. Xian nodded in certainty as he spoke. It's because of this, that there is a chance to show why you exist. This is your mission for the final battle. Let the Battle of Kings plan be smoothly realized. As neither my clone nor I have conquered our heart's devil, then the additional you will be the decisive factor in the Battle of Wits. I hope you can remember this, a battle of wits isn't determined by its process, but by its results. Ho ho, a battle of kings. Isn't that to say that between Team China and Team Devil, it can be people with a prior relation that battle against each other? Just as Xian was coolly speaking to Honglu, Yingkong's originally dull expression turned into a sweet smile, suddenly changing her from a cold and pretty assassin girl to a young woman. She giggled as she looked at the ratings on the table. Zhao Zuokeng, as someone who's unlocked the 4th stage, is his strength merely 200? It seems to be a little too small. No, to be accurate it might not even be 200. Xian shook his head. What is calculated in this table is the power that person can exhibit in the final battle as a member of that team. If Zhao Zuokeng were to be in another team, with his power this number should be 700 to 1000. But in Team Devil, his rating is just that. Similarly, us few in Team China, like Zero, Hung or me. If we were in another team, any of us three could surpass 500. You in this mental state might reach Zhao Zuokeng's 700 to 1000 rating. But we in Team China are all outshone by Zheng's brightness. The rating you can exhibit will not be able to surpass Zhao Zuokeng. Rather than calling these numbers a strength rating, why not call it the usefulness one can exhibit as part of a team? All of Team China's members coming together will give a usefulness rating of 3700, much lower than Team Devil's 5700. After listening to Xian's words, Yingkong suddenly pointed at her lips with her finger, giggling. This manner paired with her slightly androgynous and delicately beautiful face looked very moving. She giggled as she spoke. I'm very unsatisfied towards my rating. That's right, Xian, are you really clear on my strength? I'm referring to my power in this state. Why not Zheng and I have a battle? As long as Zheng doesn't use Chaos, Genesis Splitter, I'm not scared of any other move. Come on at the end, her voice actually contained coquettishness, causing the seated Cheng Xiao to stare. Zheng hurriedly shook his head. No matter how your strength is, Zhao Zuokeng in Team Devil will be left to you. A fight between us isn't needed. Idiot. Xian laughed coldly at the side. This battle is indeed unnecessary for her. But for you it's very important. You've said it yourself before. You're incompetent in the area of techniques, while she's an expert regarding techniques. Understand? She's helping you. If you want to beat your clone, since you already lose to him in conviction, then you at least can't lose to him too much from the angle of pure power. Whether it's power or technique, both are important for you. Since it's already been determined to be a battle of kings for the final battle, then you need to become stronger, and incomparably stronger until you can challenge your clone. Before that, you can't run from any battles. Zheng froze. He looked again at Yingkong, and the girl was sweetly smiling at him. That smile seemed to contain a faintly discernible warmth. Since it's a spar, then we won't fight a life and death battle. So you can't use Chaos, Genesis Splitter, or Dragon Transformation. As for Destruction and Explosion, they're not on this list as long as your body can bear all their side effects. Naturally, as the weaker party, I can use all my power, as long as I don't kill you. Yingkong giggled as she looked at Zheng. They were in a large open area in Zheng's basement. As each person's basement could change their terrain size based on the owner's imagination, Zheng had changed his basement into a large public square for the sake of this spar. Yingkong and him were standing in the middle of the public square facing each other. The members of Team China were sitting very distantly away, spectating. This battle was the first time Yingkong's main personality was fighting before everyone. Thus, everyone was more interested in Yingkong than Zheng, who they knew thoroughly, especially Cheng Xiao. Dragon Transformation was Zheng's greatest gain in power since Zheng overcame his heart's devil. It elevated his strength another level from destruction. It also instantly increased his resistance to the side effects of destruction by a large amount. When he was unable to use Dragon Transformation, he was actually more or less the same level as Yingkong, if based on pure power. Yingkong also still possessed assassination techniques he had never seen before. If you say it like this, then wouldn't Yingkong surely win? Hung heard Honglu's analysis and asked curiously. Honglu shook his head. That's not guaranteed. Battles have too many variables. Firstly theirs, then secondly. Zhen naturally has his own battle techniques. Although he hasn't undergone any systematic training for techniques, he still has experience from life and death battlefields. From when he first entered the movie worlds till now, how many battles has he gone through? Even an ordinary person would have become a seasoned fighter by now, especially Zheng, who has destruction. I actually feel like it could be that Yingkong wants to teach Zheng her assassination techniques, or it could be that she has her own plans. As they were speaking, the two people in the square were already fighting. The two didn't use their full strength at the start of the fight. Zheng simply jumped up, before chopping downwards with Tiger's Soul. Yingkong changed from her main personality to her secondary personality. The silent girl waved her empty hand at Zheng. The clang of metal colliding rang out. Yingkong hurriedly retreated, and as if nothing had happened, Zheng stepped downwards and accelerated as he gave chase. Tiger's Soul was raised before chopping downwards once again. Yin Kong's empty hands were carrying Excalibur. It was a two-handed heavy sword that couldn't be seen with the naked eye, and its sharpness wouldn't lose to Tiger's soul. It was just that compared to Zheng's ridiculous strength and body constitution, the sword's owner was much weaker. At the very least, this personality's strength was far less than Zheng. The loud and clear sound of metal connecting again. Yin Kong was much worse off this time. The web between her thumb and forefinger was directly split open, and that invisible two-handed heavy sword was sent flying, and Zheng was already pressing Tiger's souls against her neck in the next second. You lost. Zheng exhaled. His nerves from head to toe were all taut tense, because he had roughly guessed the main personality's aim. It wasn't simply to let him experience assassin battle techniques but to also train this secondary personality of Zhao Yinkong. Understand? As an assassin, what's most important isn't the weapon carried, but a simple objective, which is to kill the enemy. Yinkong, who was under Tiger's soul, suddenly started giggling. All that could be seen was her patting a hand on the blade of Tiger's soul, deflecting it to one side, while her entire body rolled to the other direction. Before Zheng could react, she had already rolled out of the attack radius of Tiger's soul. At the same time, her other hand smacked the ground. At the moment she stood up, she approached Zheng and stuck herself to Zheng's waist. As Yinkong's actions were too abrupt, Zheng simply was only able to withdraw Tiger's soul in time. Although his reaction speed was fast while in the second stage, how could it compare to Yinkong's abrupt personality change? Within the blink of an eye, she was already sticking to his waist. Within one breath, when Zheng held Tiger's soul and wanted to slash at Yinkong, a single palm of hers was on his waist. She exerted force and pushed, while her other hand welcomed Tiger's soul. The palm of that hand just happened to block Zheng's incoming wrist. Somehow, she managed to borrow Zheng's backwards force to hook his wrist. A loud and clear sound. Zheng's wrist joint was forced downwards, and Tiger's soul finally dropped to the ground. This is how I fight. Little Yinkong, no matter how you attack, the best attacking method is whatever can kill the enemy. My attacking method is force redirection and control. As I haven't overcome the Heart's Devil of the fourth stage, the strongest power I can attain now, infinitesimal control, exhibits the limits I have reached. The magnitude of every bit of force, its direction, its changes. All of it can be used to display battle techniques, and as long as my enemy doesn't exceed me by far, he'll have a chance for victory. For example, Zheng, your Chaos, Genesis Splitter. I admit, I wouldn't even be able to resist that power for even a second. But if it's other abilities, I believe I won't lose to you. Yinkong smiled sweetly. Yinkong had already completely changed to her main personality. Her abilities had already changed from one of an elite assassin to that of a genius rarely seen in the assassin clan in many years. From her words it could also be seen that she did indeed have other goals apart from fighting with Zheng. It should be to let her secondary personality understand some battle techniques more as a foundation for the final battle. Zheng's wrist had been controlled, and he had been pushed over 10 meters away. Tiger's soul had been dropped, but his expression didn't have much change. His wrist hadn't even stopped trembling, and he suspended his hand limply as he spoke. Since you've already come out to fight, then I'll use my real battle power. How do you feel if we start with explosion? Yinkong was still in that sweetly smiling look of hers that was adorable. However, in the next second, she stomped down with force. Borrowing this force, she retreated, while at the same time, her leg hooked Tiger's soul on the ground and sent it flying to her hand. The phrase "a jade-like woman and rainbow-like sword" perfectly fit the current her, as long as the sword was changed to a saber. Zheng's foot was already stepping on the spot she was at just now. With that heavy force, he actually caused the ground to sink down. Although it was merely explosion, it was not just many times more powerful than before with his current body constitution and power. Each and every punch and move of his carried tempestuous intent. And with the comprehension and passing of the Heart's Devil, his battle style had its own unique points, which was to use force to forcefully break through. Under such force, what kind of technique could block it? Just now Yinkong had precisely sensed his power, which was why under immense peril, she had dodged it. Otherwise, this foot wouldn't just be stepping on the ground. Good. You sensed my power, which is why you moved, right? Again. Zheng's speed after using explosion could no longer be caught by the naked eye. When faced with a lower level opponent, it would be over in a flash. Only the level of Zhao Zuokang or the real Zhao Yinkong could deal with it, but people on this level in the entire realm could be counted on one set of hands. Thus, Zheng did indeed have the qualifications to use force to break through. Zheng forcefully stepped on the ground, and the ground cracked once again. He borrowed the strength to charge towards Yinkong again. Although he only had one hand remaining, his momentum was as powerful as a thunderbolt. His entire figure turned into a blur as he attacked. The first to come was a fist towards Yinkong. This little girl Yinkong maintained her charming smile as before. She didn't panic, lifting the tiger's soul in her hand and chopping towards Zheng. It seemed weak and without much strength put in, but its angle was incomparably cunning. If Zheng insisted on continuing with that punch, it would be hard to avoid colliding with the edge of Tiger's soul. Although his body constitution was indeed powerful, it was still a far cry from Tiger's soul's sharpness. Who could expect that Zheng wouldn't dodge, and a pale white light suddenly appeared on his hand. This was created from when he compressed chi in his palm. Using the infinitesimal control from the early fourth stage, he could be considered to be proficient at this kind of energy manipulation. Before the light blade from Tiger's soul could hit his hand, he was already grabbing the light blade and pulling it over. Hee, take it. Yinkong giggled, and easily let go off Tiger's soul. Sure enough, Zheng forcefully retreated about half a step back abruptly. Yingkong actually had her body slip back in, her body squeezing into Zheng's embrace, and her two small hands wrapped towards the direction of Zheng's neck. It didn't have any strength put into it, purely looking like lovers playing around. Zheng was however breaking out into cold sweat. He had seen this before in Yingkong's memories. A tug would cause an enormous amount of force and a light jump would cause a person's neck bones to snap. How was this move that of a spar? It was simply that of a killing move. Zheng hurriedly retreated without even thinking about it. Yingkong had been waiting for this chance. That action had been a feint. Although it was said that when you take action, don't show mercy, and if you show mercy, don't take action, it was a spar after all, and she wouldn't use an assassin's killing moves? She wasn't afraid of close combat with Zheng, but only of him charging about like some rhinoceros. Thus, she started going on the offensive the moment Zheng retreated. Zheng could only retreat several steps in time, and Yingkong's current speed was faster than him. She easily charged to in front of him. One palm grabbed towards the wrist that Zheng had lost control of, while the other came out of nowhere towards his chest, as if it was waiting for something. Zheng's wrist was grabbed, and an acute pain was transmitted from his arm immediately. His other hand was grasping the light blade of Tiger's soul. Unable to think through it carefully in time, he threw away Tiger's soul at once, and a fist punched out towards Yingkong. Yingkong's waiting hand in the air finally extended. She used her palm to block Zheng's attack. That strike that seemed as powerful as a thunderbolt instead seemed as light and insignificant as a goose feather when it hit the center of her palm. The force was uniformly distribution all over her body and the girl was sent flying. However, her other hand was still grabbing onto the wrist joint Zheng had lost control of. Under this force, she spun a circle in midair like a pendulum. Then, with a bang, Zheng's arm actually twisted to his back. The power of explosion combined with the momentum of her revolution actually forcibly snapped this arm. Zheng could only let out a yelp of pain in time. Before he could make any reaction, Yingkong behind him stepped down on the ground, jumping over to his front while still holding onto his hand. The arm had already been snapped and with the pull of this force, the arm was actually forcibly torn off in the instant she landed. There was a tearing sound like a rag tearing, and Yingkong had already jumped over 10 meters away, the severed arm in tow. Zheng's arm spurted out blood continuously, only stopping several seconds later. This level of power isn't of difficulty to me. Zheng, I only have a few minutes. Could you be trying to drag this out until I fall asleep? It's better for us to start the real fight. This speed is simply making me yawn. Yingkong giggled. In truth, she had many misgivings about Zheng in her heart, or else she wouldn't have started off with making Zheng's arm useless. Only now, did she feel confidence in dealing with his destruction. Zheng sealed all the blood vessels in his severed arm, even suppressing the pain. Only then did he finally look at the girl over 10 meters away, who was still adorably giggling. Although there was some blood on her face and body, it only served to make her more bewitching. If so, then this is destruction. Zheng suddenly started laughing. It wasn't because he lost an arm, but because Yingkong's power exceeded his expectations. If so, this could tip the scales in Team China's favor in the final battle. Thinking of this made him laugh. As for what happened next in the battle, it would depend on how long Yingkong could last. Yingkong was originally still standing there giggling, but in the next moment she waved her hand to block her front. With a lonely bang, her entire body was sent flying backwards. However, this girl was indeed still nimble. She stepped down forcefully at the moment of her fall, suddenly rolling towards the side, thus managing to dodge a punch directed at her landing position. Yingkong was secretly complaining internally. Just blocking this attack had shattered her bones, and this was the result after using infinitesimal control. Although a large majority of the force had been dispersed into the ground, the remaining force still hadn't been something she could bear. And that wasn't all. As an assassin, Yingkong wouldn't have as many scruples as she did now when it came to killing. Put unpleasantly, she already had the chance to kill Zheng before when she broke off his arm. However, she had let the opportunity go as it was a spar. Truthfully, lacking a weapon, she couldn't kill Zheng anymore when Zheng activated destruction, unless... Alright, let's stop here. We said it's a spar. If you unlock the mid-4th stage, you can indeed use that physique that lets you absorb energy. But won't you be afraid of hurting us without having overcome your heart's devil? Zheng used sorrow while in destruction, and in the instant Yingkong landed on the ground, he had arrived before her. One finger lightly touching her forehead, he smiled faintly and said, "That's right, Team China is strong. Not just me, but everyone is strong. Enter the beam within 30 seconds. Target locked. Aragon. Teleportation begins." Aragon wasn't a horror movie. To be accurate, it was a Western fantasy movie, with knights, swords, magic and giant dragons. It was a wholly Western fantasy world, and this movie world was exactly the one Team China was entering now. From the analysis of the two brains of Team China, this movie world wasn't difficult. At least to the current Team China, it didn't pose much difficulty. So why did such an easy movie suddenly appear at this time? The verdict of the two brains was shockingly unanimous. The final battle was coming, and God wanted to supplement the rest of Team China's battle power, such as the young dragon they had obtained long ago. In the Jurassic Park movie, Team China had met a real Western dragon, with a colossal body as long as 100 meters. Every time it breathed out flames, it had destructive power on par with a miniature nuclear bomb. If Zheng hadn't risked his life as he fought at that time and used the extraordinarily destructive power of destruction, Team China at that time may have all died under that giant dragon's mouth. Aragon was indeed a movie world portraying giant dragons. The giant dragons inside naturally couldn't compare to the giant dragon Team China had faced. They were at most 10 meters long, like large lizards, and completely couldn't compare to that 100-meter-long giant dragon with fire breath as destructive as miniature nuclear bombs and immunity to long-range high-tech weapons. In this movie, this lizard-like dragon could instantaneously mature into a large dragon, and maturing was exactly what Team China's young dragon needed. Although that's the case, but if it really does mature, how are we supposed to bring a 100-meter-long dragon into the horror movie worlds? Using the tamer medallion you mentioned that needs a rank B reward to exchange? Can a non-humanoid be put inside? What is it? Cheng Xiao was carrying a small badge, his expression strange as he asked. That badge was actually something Zheng had exchanged. After he had obtained a leader position, the search authority had returned. When he had been researching how to bring in a 100-meter-long dragon into the movie worlds, he had found an item named Tamer's Medallion among the exchangeable equipment. Allegedly, it was an equipment for strengthening tamers, to complement the tamer enhancement that God had. When tamers were enhanced to the Grandmaster Tamer, they could summon non-human life forms as their magical pets. This medallion was exactly an equipment for storing large non-human organisms. That's right. Zheng took the badge, and looked at the young dragon sleeping lazily in his embrace. This little dragon treats me as its family, so there's no need to exchange the tamer enhancement to control it. What I'm worried about isn't this. What I'm worried is that this almost overly rushed method of helping it grow may harm it. Even if we want this battle power, I really don't want to harm it. This little dragon is pure as a baby. Things regarding slaughter are still very far off for it. At this moment, everyone was in Aragon, and the time period was when the main character had just obtained the dragon egg, and the movie had just started. Aragon was a standard Western fantasy movie. The plot was that in an unknown country, there had been a corps of dragon riders. They had possessed great power due to their mounts, and had become the true owners of this country. This situation had come to an end when a certain dragon rider appeared. This dragon rider had possessed the strongest giant dragon and was treacherous and vicious. He was also crafty, and under his schemes, the entire kingdom was embroiled in the chaos of war. Dragon riders fought each other, to the extent where large numbers of them and their mounts fell. The strongest dragon rider became the king of this entire country, and used military force and magic to rule the entire kingdom. To ensure his rule lasted long, he began to hunt and kill the remaining dragon riders. In reality, there wasn't even one dragon rider left in this movie world except for the king. All that was left was one dragon egg. The entire movie was a story about the youth who picked up the dragon egg, maturing step by step until he became a qualified dragon rider. The place everyone appeared in was the small village where the protagonists stayed at the very beginning. It was a poor village with population not exceeding 100, with a few wandering warriors. Generally, this village was a more peaceful one, and the battles between dragon riders seemed very far off. They appeared at the fringe of the village, and were already used to the pattern for this kind of fantasy movies. When the movie started, Zheng brought everyone to hide in the forest outside the village. Thus, even though 2 days had already passed in the movie world, they hadn't yet been discovered by the people of the movie world. Zero, what's the matter? Has the main character Aragon obtained the dragon egg? Zheng looked at Zero and Yingkong, who had returned from the village. Having these two, one close combat and one long distance, as Team China's scouts wasn't bad. With their fighting capabilities, they wouldn't attract the attention of the people in the village. Even without a Psyche Force user, they had easily scouted out the main character Aragon's situation. Zero silently nodded his head. Yes. He's obtained the dragon egg. Just like in the movie plot, he doesn't know it's a dragon egg, but thinks it's just a strange rock. What should we do? Snatch that dragon egg now? Until when it hatches, and let that young dragon bring our young dragon along in maturing. Zheng silently considered for a while. He then shook his head and spoke. No. Aragon is a fantasy movie. Many things can't be explained with science or logic. What if that dragon egg can't hatch? Well, follow how the movie showed it, and let that egg hatch. We only need to appear when that young dragon matures. We won't discuss this for the time being. Have you all already confirmed if technological weapons work? Zero nodded and hadn't spoken when Xian at the side actually took the initiative to speak. That's right, technological weapons work. Want me to test the application of the magic cannon for you? No need. Zheng and the surrounding people were all breaking out in cold sweat. Xian ignored them, and only minded his own business, taking out a set of documents and silently looking through it. Although he was looking silently, the emotions in his eyes became more fanatical with the documents being taken out. Xian in this condition was too strange, such that Zero, who had originally standing close to him, subconsciously distanced himself several meters away. Although I don't want to admit it, don't you think Xian in this condition is very horrifying? Supposedly he's researching cultivation techniques, and plans to let me cultivate these techniques to safely use chaos, Genesis Splitter. It's just, can his expression not keep its indifference? Looking at this fanatical him, I don't know why, but I feel very apprehensive. Zheng looked as Xian walked further and further away, and spoke softly to the remaining people. Everyone else had an expression of complete agreement. It looked like it wasn't only Zheng feeling apprehensive in his heart. Facing Xian's fanatic expression, it was only right that everyone else felt similarly apprehensive. It's not just expression, although Xian didn't overcome the Heart's Devil in Independence Day, but that cannon blast still benefited him a lot. At least from his current behavior, he was only one step from possessing emotions. I hope he gets it all before the final battle, or else. Zheng hiddenly sighed. The final battle. These three words were like a mountain weighing upon his heart. Although he had said it in a way pleasing to the ears, Zheng also knew the meaning of the final battle for Team China. It represented that at least half of Team China would die in battle. It would be a true death. They couldn't revive again, having already been revived once. This was also the best possibility. The other greatest possibility was Team China could very likely be wiped. I hope Xian can obtain feelings and senses before the final battle. I hope Yingkong can end her grudge with Zhao Zuokang. I hope Hung can obtain Ming Yanwei's forgiveness. I hope Lan, I hope we can all live on, and go back to the real world, and fulfill our dreams alive. Of course, reality was always more cruel than imagination. Although Zheng continuously thought about leading everyone to live on, but when a certain someone knew about his thoughts, he could always dampen his enthusiasm. You want to lead everyone to live on? Talk after you've woken up those sleeping. Hearing that Zheng wanted to lead everyone to live on, Xian didn't even lift his head up. While fanatically poring over those documents, he pointed at the several members lying behind him, who were the sleeping Lan and the rest. Zheng immediately no longer had any momentum. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but didn't in the end. Seeing this expression, Honglu sighed and interjected. Zheng, don't overly obsess over whether we'll still be alive. Although living is important, some things are more important. The final battle cannot be avoided. It's not your fault, nor is it your fault for being too weak. This is the fate decided by God. Although it's cruel, we're all already mentally prepared, and have the awareness of dying in the final battle. Everyone else silently nodded. Even Imhotep and Ang Sunamun nodded non-stop. Zheng breathed in deeply and turned around, and only murmured then, being alongside all of you is the greatest honor in my lifetime. As the words fell, everyone suddenly heard that unique voice of God. New information appeared on the watch that had not had any words on it since entering the movie. Breach the capital of Alagagia within 3 days. Massacre all living things within the capital. Every member will gain 3,000 points upon completing the mission within 3 days. 1,000 points will be deducted for every day the mission is not complete after the 3 days. If the mission is not complete within 30 days, the team will be wiped. This mission was too ridiculous. Accurately speaking, it was that Team China had never accepted such a mission before. There was actually no target, but only a pure massacre as the mission. It wasn't killing 100 or 200 people, but a mission to massacre the whole capital. This was simply what Clone Zheng had done at that time when he destroyed Cairo. We already know the mission for this movie. It sounds ridiculous. Destroying the capital of Alagagia. Alagagia is the country where the plot happens, a country governed by a dragon rider. No matter how many people there are in the capital and whether they are good or bad, we have to destroy it. Zheng looked at the other members of Team China. Everyone became silent. Zheng didn't wait for anyone to say anything and talked to himself. The difficulty of this movie isn't clear now. Even if it's a special movie God gave us, like you two said, Xian, I definitely don't believe it has no difficulty and will let us play around and farm points. I guess that the difficulty should lie in the word massacre. Of course, all this is merely me guessing. Everyone should discuss the current situation first. Honglu looked at Xian, then sighed. Let me analyze the current situation firstly. The movie world Aragon hasn't actually started yet. I'm referring to the movie's plot. For example, Aragon's dragon egg hasn't hatched yet. The king, Galbatorix, and the rest don't know that the egg is here yet. It can be said that we are in the time period before the plot starts. In this case, we won't be able to accomplish our most important goal in entering this movie. Zhen nodded. You mean the young dragon may not mature, since the plot is unable to unfold? That's right. Honglu nodded. If the plot can't unfold, then that young dragon may not mature, or even hatch. If so, how do we let our young dragon accompany it in maturing? This movie will then lose its meaning. That's the first thing. Secondly, where should we put our sleeping members? We can't possibly bring them along to attack the capital, right? These are the two troublesome problems. The rest can still be easily solved. Zhen looked at the rest. Whether it was long-distance competence like Zero or Hung, melee competence like Yingkong or Cheng Xiao, Team China was already extremely strong. The past Team China would never have even dared thought of a mission like exterminating a capital. Only special teams like Team Celestial or Team Devil would be able to exterminate a country's capital. It seemed like Team China had already reached the same level as them. If normal battle didn't work, there was always the magic cannon to use. Hung suddenly spoke up at the side. Is there a method to both complete the mission and let the young dragon mature? Honglu shook his head, before nodding his head. There is a method, but it's very risky. Xian suddenly smiled coldly, and put down the documents in his hands. He'll talk about this. There should be 2 methods. Both are risky. First is waiting. Isn't it 30 days before we're wiped? Making an inference from the plot, we can definitely wait for the plot to start before the 30 days are over. That young dragon can mature. But if so, the trap God placed for us will appear. How many days do we have to wait for the plot to start? How many points do we have to sufficiently wait for? The price to obtain a giant dragon isn't as cheap as you imagine. The second method is that we'll start the plot ourselves, and become the impetus behind it? Everyone looked at each other, baffled. They didn't know what the second method Xian spoke about meant. Only Honglu was silently nodding his head, obviously having understood the meaning behind Xian's words. Zheng also unlocked the third stage, simulating Honglu's thought process. After thinking for a long time he finally spoke. The second method is viable, but the randomness of this method is too high. We also need to take note of the trap in the wording for God's mission completely massacre the capital. Does this refer to all living things in the capital, and turn it into a city of the dead, but with living things that leave the capital not counted? Or does it refer to all living things currently already in the capital now, and we need to chase them down and kill them if they leave the capital? These are the two possibilities. If it's the first possibility, we can use the second method, and tell the king about the information regarding the egg. This will let the plot unfold. But if it's the second possibility, with the progression of the plot, the king will send out the living things in the capital everywhere to launch attacks. Then we'll need to spend a lot of time to chase down all the living things that left the capital. Every single one needs to be killed, and we'll be delayed by a lot of time. Is that what you mean? Xian nodded. That's exactly it. It's your responsibility as leader to decide whether to take this bet. It's naturally good if we win the bet. But if we lose, you'll have to assume responsibility. Do you dare bet? This tone, it's really that tone unique to Xian. Then, Aragon felt very strange. For some reason, he felt like all the people in the village were looking at him. No matter where he went, everyone avoided him like the plague. Everyone also pointed at him from afar. No matter how dense he was, he could still sense the weird atmosphere. Uncle, what happened? Why does everyone seem to be afraid of me? Aragon found it extremely odd. He randomly chose a man and walked towards him. Who would have imagined that as soon as he started speaking, the man would actually start running in terror, leaving him awkwardly behind. This situation was too abnormal, leaving him there blankly with his mouth wide open. It's him. Official, rumors say that he's the one who picked up that precious stone. Suddenly, sounds of a racket traveled over from a distant street. All that could be seen was an old man shouting as he pointed at Aragon. Then, several soldiers wearing half-body armor charged out from behind that old man. They ran towards Aragon, sharp swords grasped in their hands. Seeing their attitude, it definitely wasn't some joke. Aragon seemed to have been scared stupid. He stood blankly at his original position, until a middle-aged wandering warrior pushed him onto the ground, shouting at those soldiers as he unsheathed a sword, "You all are destroying your own last hope. Aragon! Return to your dragon egg. Your danger will make it hatch. Hurry!" Aragon was still frozen after being pushed onto the ground. He continuously asked questions as he got up. Dragon egg? What dragon egg? What's that? That stone, that's like a precious stone. You idiot. The middle-aged warrior brandished his sword and rushed towards those soldiers. Aragon shouted out, then ran away to the farm he lived at. The farm Aragon lived at wasn't far from the village. To be exact, not even 10 minutes were needed to run there. Aragon would even more show his speed that surpassed normal humans, especially when he was in mortal danger. Under his uncle's stupefied gaze, he charged into the barn where he had placed the blue precious stone he had picked up. Speaking of which, it was indeed strange. When Aragon extended his hand to touch that blue stone, an obvious crack suddenly appeared from the center of the stone. The entire precious stone wriggled, as though something inside wanted to charge out. This scared Aragon into hurriedly withdrawing his hand, and before he understood what was happening, that precious stone had already split open, and a small winged dog appeared. No, to be accurate, it was a small dog that looked like a big bird. What are you? You're not a bird, right? Aragon was very excited. His mind was still thinking about the two words the middle-aged warrior had said, dragon egg. Could this small thing be the young form of a dragon? While thinking, Aragon was already reaching out to that tiny young dragon. The young dragon also seemed to be very terrified, but it didn't avoid Aragon's outstretched hand. When Aragon's hand touched the young dragon's head, a blue-colored light was emitted from the point of contact between the two. At this moment, at a thicket near the farm, a black-colored young dragon that was lazily sleeping in Zheng's embrace suddenly stood up. It looked curiously at its surroundings. It then looked at the barn, as if there was something drawing it there. Zheng, Aragon's dragon egg has hatched. As expected, the master being in danger will induce the egg to hatch. Zero's voice sounded from a silver metal piece in Zheng's hand. Zheng excitedly said, "That's right, our young dragon seemed to sense some activity over there just now. The two young dragons really seem to possess some relationship, then well follow the plan. I'll pass the young dragon to Hung. Hung, Cheng Xiao, and you stay behind. You all will protect the sleeping members, as well as Honglu, Tenji, Yanwei, Junchen, and Ang Sunamuan, who don't have much combat power. The rest of us, let's go. We'll use the sky stick to fly straight to Alagish's capital." Far away from the thicket, Aragon was hugging the young blue-colored dragon and excitedly rushed out from the barn. He didn't have time to say it in detail, so he dragged his uncle and cousin to the distant forest. As he ran, he told them about the young dragon in his embrace. This was the young dragon predicted to begin Aragon.